Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, I worked a 20-hour shift, so it was okay.
20-hour shift? Well, what do you do?
I'm a CNA.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Went to the aquarium yesterday, or over the weekend. First time I've been to an aquarium in Utah. I was really happy that they put the penguins in the Antarctic exhibit. So I was already get emotionally um, disgusted if they said that they were Arctic animals. I did a report on penguins when I was in third grade, so I'm somewhat of an expert. I say that very humbly. Well, today, what I want, have either of you been able to read any of the module for this week and then the one for a couple weeks from now?
A little bit.
Okay. Because what I wanted to talk about today is value and color, and then I wanted to go over the annotated bibliography a little bit. Value and color, we talked about line and how we can use line to create shape. What's the difference between shape and form?
Is
Do you
form
remember?
like 3D?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Form is 3D and shape is 2D. One of the ways that, well, the reason we use value and form is to kind of give shading to that form. I mean, sorry, the reason we use value and color is to give a little bit of shading to that form so that it feels more believable, so we can accept it. Have you ever heard of the phrase, um, oh, and I completely forgot what I was had on the tip of my tongue. Suspension of disbelief. Have you ever heard that phrase? Like in film or in theater? It's the idea that we understand that the theater is just on the stage and these people are play acting, and in film we understand that it's special effects and there's a story. But what the directors and writers are trying to do is get us to suspend our disbelief so that we can be emotionally vested in the story. It makes it a lot more entertaining. Things like value and color are what we use as artists to create things so that our audience can believe that the thing that we've drawn or painted or whatever actually does exist in the real world, that it exists in its own environment of space. Value is the different kinds of shades that allow us to see how the object is round or the shape of the object or the texture of the object. Value are the highlights and the lowlights or shadows and the mid ranges. Color, that helps us to believe that it's real by engaging our presuppositions about certain kinds of information with the color. Bright colors can attract attention, dull colors kind of pull it away. I'm going to ask a question that may seem kind of odd, but which is closer to you, red or blue? Which of those two is farther away? Have you looked across the valley and seen the mountains at the far end of the valley? What color are the mountains compared to what they should be?
Darker?
Yeah, they're darker. They start to turn a little bit blue. The reason why is because there's more air between us and those mountains, and the air generally reads as blue. So, in general, when people are using color to denote depth or underscore depth, red is going to be generally a little bit closer, and blue is going to be generally a little bit farther away. Have you heard of redshift in astronomy? In astronomy, stars are so incredibly far away, and our universe continues to expand, that redshift is one of the techniques that astronomers use to determine how fast stars are moving away from us and how far away they are from each other and from us. And that goes to the same kind of thing, the idea of using color to kind of shift a placement or to present a placement in a volume. Whether or not that volume is in the real world or not doesn't make any difference. As artists, we use that kind of thing all the time. We create, if we paint or draw, whatever we're using as that two-dimensional background uh, becomes the space or the volume for whatever it is that we're drawing. And we can use value to suspend our viewers' disbelief so that they can feel it, that it's a real object. And we can use color to give additional meaning to it, or to give additional placement to it within that volume that we're drawing or painting. Does that make sense to you? In this module, what you're going to be doing is making 3 of your own do-it-yourself inks, and you're going to be making 12 value studies. And the 12 value studies, before you panic and throw yourselves on the ground and bang the floor with your fists and throw a fit, the 12 value studies should not take you very long. The minimum should be about 10 minutes, and the maximum, I don't want you spending any more than 45 minutes on them. Now, we're not trying to reproduce something with photographic realism. All we're doing is using the inks that we make to create a value study or explore the highlights, the lowlights, and the mid-ranges. Can everybody see this cup? What is the texture that's on the outside edge of the cup?
Bumpy.
Yeah. How do you know?
The shades of red.
The shades of red. Can you see the highlights? You see the shadows or the lowlights? And what are the mid-ranges? The mid-ranges are all those values between the highlights and the lowlights that kind of help us to blend them together. But yeah, so instead of drawing the cup, what you'll do is you'll draw an outline of the object, and then you may draw a couple of the highlights and lowlights, but you're going to use your ink to draw in the rest of that. And I believe that I completely forgot to use the word brush anywhere in the assignment. So we'll find out if anybody refuses to use a brush, but you're painting with this just like anything else. No, I did use the word brush. I'm a solid 23% sure that I did at least once in the assignment. What you're going to be doing is drawing very light sketches of the outline of 3 different objects, and then you're going to be using the inks that you make to make value studies of each of those. And I think the 3 different objects are going to be an egg, which is round, a bumpy rock or rock with texture, not a river stone, and a stack of books. That way we get the very smooth rounding that's in the egg. We get the texture that we see in the rock, and we get the rather flat surfaces that we see on the stack of books. Now, one thing that you'll probably notice right away is that some of the highlights and lowlights aren't exactly where you expect them to be, and that's totally fine. Like, one thing that surprised me when I started to draw is that in most objects, there's actually light that bounces up into the shadows from whatever the object is resting on. So an egg won't just go from light by the light source to shadow on the opposite side. It'll have shadow somewhere in between and then start getting light again as it picks up the light that's bouncing off of the table or the desk or the counter that it's resting on. So a good way to do this assignment is to set those three things up and take a few minutes to just draw the outlines of them on 4 different pieces of paper. So you have 4 eggs, 4 rocks, and 4 stacks of books. And then you'll take those, and you can have the objects in front of you, or just make them work on the paper without them. But it definitely helps to have the project in front of you. And then you're going to do an egg, a rock, and a stack of books in each of the 3 colors of ink that you make. And then on the last one, the 4th set of 3, you're going to be using a little bit from each of the 3 inks that you made. And I'll explain that right now. For the inks, there's 3 different videos that walk you through. The first video talks about 3 different kinds of inks that you can make. Second video talks about 3 more kinds of inks that you make, and I think that one includes beetroot, which is nice because it's good that beetroot is good for something. I definitely am not going to eat any. And then the third of those 3 videos tells you how they made ink 200 years ago. And you can do any of the 3 from any of the 7 types of inks that those 3 videos cover. Just pick 3 different colors of ink. Then the 4th video talks about natural pigments. And I just want you to look at that. I want you to watch all the videos regardless of what you end up doing. And because even though we aren't going to be using any of those natural pigments, maybe you want to do that for your Sundiata project later on. But it's good to at least know about. Now, I wanted to show you just a couple of the things that I do, and this is how I make the tea or the ink. I really I just go to like Walmart or a health food place. This is a good tea. It's rooibos. This makes kind of a more of a pinkish one. The Tulsi Sweet Rose, it also makes kind of a pinkish, reddish one. The Tangerine Positive Energy, this I got from Walmart. This one makes something that is a little bit more like kind of a brown. And then the turmeric, this one makes something that's more of a yellow. And so for me, I would probably use the rooibos and the turmeric because that gives me a very distinct reddish one and a very distinct yellowish one. So they're not at all like each other. And I give you directions on how to do this in the module as well. And then for my 3rd color of tea, I would use a really, really crappy, cheap coffee from like Walmart or something like that. And then how you make it is you're going to have 3 cups. I would recommend these be glass because glass isn't going to stain. You fill each of the 3 up with 1 cup of boiling water. And then in the first one, the coffee one, this one says 1 heaping tablespoon of coffee for each 6 fluid ounces of cold water. What I would do is I would do 4 to 6 tablespoons of the coffee in that cup, the first cup of water. This and this, you're just doing regular tea is going to be 1 tea pack, and I would do at least 4 in each of those. You're not going to be drinking this. Don't worry about it. It would taste really super bitter if you decided to. So you'll soak 4 tea bags in each of those other 2 cups of hot water. and just let that sit, all of that sit for about 30 minutes. And you're going to get a pair of gloves. And with the tea, when you take that out, you're going to kind of squish the bags a little bit to get more of the water out of those bags. And you're also going to be stirring the coffee a bit to try to get as much of those grounds dissolved as well. Then after you do that, you're going to put 1 tablespoon of vinegar in each of those 3 concoctions you just made. So remember, don't drink this. You can if you want, but I'm pretty sure if you accidentally forget and drink it, you'll remember why you weren't supposed to right away. The vinegar can be rather potent. So after you've got those 3, then you're going to have 3 colors, and you could do this with the ones on the videos or whatever, but you're going to get 2 cups like this, Kager cups, or whatever you young people call them today. I know that you're unfamiliar with the term Kager because all of you are very upright and just filled with moral turpitude, and you would never go to a Kager. But that's what we used to call these kind of cups. And the reason is because any other cup it would probably be stained, and you're going to be throwing them away anyway. So might as well use the large plastic ones. In the first one, you're going to put maybe a couple tablespoons or a quarter cup of that denser ink that you just finished making. And in the second one, you're going to put about a teaspoon of that ink that you just made. And then in either of those 2, you're going to pour a little bit of water to kind of thin it out a little bit. So the first one, where you have the cup of hot water, that's going to be your low lights or your shadows. The second one that has a quarter cup of ink with diluted with some water is going to be your mid-range values or mid-tones. And the third one that has just a teaspoon of the ink in it, that you have more water, that's going to be your highlights. So you want that diluted enough so that it's just barely off of clear. Is this making sense to you? Because then you will have 3 values or shades of each of the 3 different colors of ink. So can anybody guess how many cups you'll have at this time?
9.
Excellent. Very good. I actually had somebody say 21. And I have no idea how they got to that number. I didn't want to ask because I didn't really want to engage them in conversation. But yes, you'll have 9 different ones. And then you're going to set up your work area. And I would recommend getting a plastic garbage sack to put under your work area, put newspaper on top of it. You can have your models that you drew your sketches of in front of you for reference. But you want the newspaper between you and the plastic bags to soak up whatever extra liquid there might be. And I would also recommend getting a really nasty shirt that you don't care about from like DI, or bother it from somebody you don't care about anymore, or something along those lines, so you can throw it away when you're done if it does stain. And then you are going to do 3 value studies with 1 ink. And the 3 value studies are egg, rock, and books. Then you're going to do 3 value studies with the second ink, and that's going to be egg, rock, and books. And 3 value studies with the third ink, or the coffee, which is egg, rock, and books. I would also suggest, I probably should have said that just a minute before saying that, is set out another garbage bag and put newspaper on that so you can dry your paper somewhere safe. Because we really do not want this dropping onto the floor or dripping onto the floor or anything like that. And then for your final set of value studies, each of the 3, you're going to use at least 1 element from each of the 3 colors of ink. For example, say you're doing the egg, do the highlight from the rooibos, do the low light from the turmeric, and do the mid-range from the coffee. And then when you do it to the texture of the rocks, maybe the mid-range is going to be what you use for the highlights, Maybe the darkest shadows are going to be the coffee, and maybe the other one's going to be this. Or maybe you're going to be doing a highlight with turmeric, a low light with the rooibos, and then the mid-range, you're going to mix all three colors. It really doesn't matter. It's just each of those three that last set of egg, stone, and books need to have all three of the inks in them.
So we'll have four things of the egg, books, and
right, exactly. You'll have 4 sets. Very good. And that's pretty much what it is. So the first thing you're going to turn in is a picture of the 9 cups with the different dilutions of the ink that you've made. Second thing you're going to turn in is an image of all those value studies you made using color. I also, in all this, there's also a color wheel that I want you to look at and play with for a little bit, just to have fun with that. Remember, we talked about the tools of artistic critique to use as we explore different works of art. Expanding your vocabulary as to in relation to what you're seeing is really important. So the more words you have in your vocabulary describing color and value, the better for when you describe artwork. So do you guys think you got a handle on that assignment? Great. The reason why I don't want you to spend any less than 10 minutes on each of those is because I want you to engage your brain a bit. Again, they don't have to be photorealistic. You're just exploring value, but I want you to think about it as you're working on it. And if you find yourself tempted to spend an hour and a half on each one, I would say don't, because I don't want you spending any more than 45 minutes on each one. All right? Okay, the next thing is the annotated bibliography. The annotated bibliography, I wanted to send it out now so you could start reading it now, so that you could start looking forward to doing it. I'm not saying looking forward like you would anticipate opening a present on Christmas, although that would be absolutely wonderful. I really doubt that would happen to anybody when you're dealing with an annotated bibliography. I'm saying looking forward to, so that you can go through some of the steps each week until you get done with the whole thing, so that none of you have to stay up all night the night before it's due. I broke it down to 10 steps to make it so that each step is completely doable. What is the difference between a bibliography and a biography?
a biography is like about me, or like the person wrote it themselves.
Yeah, biography talks about the person's life. What's a bibliography?
Is it when like in art you talk about like one piece or like one thing that the person did?
That's pretty close. And that's what we're going to be doing with this. A bibliography refers specifically to writing about the different sources that you use. In this case, like Leah said, as you talk about the artist's work. I have had people, and these are people that are seniors, submit a sketch about the artist's life, just writing a 5-page paper on how wonderful the artist is, when all they had to do was write an annotated bibliography. And the bibliography is you're writing down the different sources that you used to gather information about the artist in such a way so that absolutely anybody can come along and find the same sources you used and learn what you did. What you're going to be doing is you take your artist that you wrote about in your reflection piece that you picked from that list of 85 different artists, and then you're going to start plugging in their name to different search databases like Google, or I also like DuckDuckGo, and I think YouTube is excellent. So I would recommend looking at all 3 of those at least. And with the artist name and then art or sculpture or whatever afterwards. Now you can also look up Wikipedia. Why is Wikipedia, but we're going to use Wikipedia for something very specific. Why is Wikipedia something that you don't want to look up when you're doing research on anything? You don't want to use Wikipedia as a reference. Why?
Anyone can write on it.
Yeah, there's no qualifications. But what do we use the Wikipedia page for?
They link the sources.
Excellent. Yeah, perfect. That is the best part about Wikipedia. Somebody else has already gone to the time of finding some sources. So what I would recommend is keep your eye open for things like bias reporting, like we talked about last week, as well as article repeats, which we also talked about last week. What you're going to do is go to at least 3 different social websites that do search engine websites, and look up your artist. And I want you to find 8 or 10 citations about that artist. The reason why you want to find more than what you're actually going to use is because over the next couple of days, you're going to be, or over the following days, you're going to be going through that list of 8 or 10 sources and discarding the ones you don't like, or the ones that seem to cover the same ground, or the ones that are just really deplorably written. So that by the end of a little bit of visiting those, you have 5 that are really good that you feel good about. Does that make sense to you? Then you're going to use MLA standard to cite them. And after each citation, you're going to include the little line accessed on, and then the date that you accessed it, whatever that date is. Remember I told you about the Wayback Machine, that website? We do that so that in case the website is no longer functioning, we can use a Wayback Machine to go back on the date that you found it so that we can revisit that same article or YouTube video. A typical annotated bibliography for this class will be, you have the artist's name, then your name, then the number 1, the MLA citation for your first source, and then you're going to write a paragraph. A paragraph has to be 3 to 5 sentences, well written. So no incredibly glaring spelling mistakes or really horrible grammar issues. You're going to go through and that first paragraph, you're going to write about what that citation dealt with. You're going to sum up what you saw, if it's a video, or what you read. And you're going to talk just a moment about what they discussed in it. And then you may even want to write something about how is this relevant to the artist that you're using. Then the second paragraph, you're going to write yourself about what you got out of whatever it is you saw or you read. What did you find out that you liked about the artist? What did you learn about the artist's unique use of noodles and kinetic sculpture or whatever it is? And then you're going to have this number 2, do the second citation, and then the second annotation. And I would recommend heartily having 2 line returns or spaces in between each of those different elements. So that makes it a lot easier to read. Is that understandable to everybody? Okay. Now next week we're going to have a short project to deal with texture, but I think for the next couple of projects, I want you to keep in mind that you're also working on this annotated bibliography, because I think it's a good idea to go through, do maybe the first 3 steps, let it soak in your brain for a while, come back, have the tabs open on your computer from the different sources you found, then go back after a day or 2 and open those up and get some more information from them. Maybe start writing down the citations with the MLA standard, and then take a rest for a bit, and then come back, write your annotations, and finally turn it in. So you don't have to do the whole thing in one sitting. It works a lot better if you space it out. Alrighty, guys? Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I can see the very top of Casey's hair, but I can't see her at all. Was that a no? Okay. All right. Well, that's all I have to cover for today. And if you guys are happy with that, I will look forward with Galaxies of Joy until our next meeting next week. Alrighty, guys? We'll see you.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.